A lot of people think that you are probably a lifetime Seattleite. That's actually not the case. You grew up as an only child amongst dogwood trees, the Golden Bengal, the farthest inland port linked to the West Coast in Lewiston, Idaho. What was little Rebecca like in the 90s?
You really did your research. I mean, Lewiston, Idaho is a town that nobody has ever heard of. And that's always what I say. I don't know if it's true. But yeah, you got it. Little Rebecca growing up in the 90s was super quiet, super shy, didn't want to talk, even to like extended family. I was just like, yes, an only child to two parents who worked all the time, worked full time. My mom always worked full time. My dad worked weird shifts because he was a police officer. So he's retired, but he had been doing that his whole career. So like 30 plus years. So sometimes he would work at night and sometimes he would work like on Christmas and stuff like that. So it was just, it is not normal, but for me, it was normal to just I was always kind of with one parent because when one was at work, the other was home and they, that sort of thing. A latchkey kid, like I would get off the bus and walk home and let myself in and just, I don't say this in like a sad way. I'm not sad about it at all. But the truth is I was alone a lot in a way that served me, I think, a little bit because you have to learn to be okay being by yourself and like being with your thoughts, being a little bored. I grew up cultivating those skills, even though I was like 8 years old. I didn't realize that. I tried to be in the background and as unobjectionable as possible. And especially in like junior high school, I had some really great friends toward the end of high school. We hung out all the time, but kind of up until then, it was like try not to get noticed for the wrong reasons, like being embarrassed or something like that. I realize now as an adult, how it's ended up in my life now, but at the time it was like, just keep everybody happy. That was my job. That was a job I gave myself. So
that sounds exhausting, Rebecca. To make everyone happy. I'm also hearing some cool stuff about, I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. You were doing a lot of stuff you wanted to do and you kept the circle that you wanted. What was the inner life like for you? If you were alone or maybe just with one parent home at a time, what was occupying your space?
I did a lot of reading, but then also kind of like mentally exploring those worlds, like maybe creating a world based off of a book that I read. Lots of like pretend play. So like I had Barbies, I had dolls, I had Polly Pockets, I had all those things where you would create a world and characters in it. And just, I probably spent hours and hours doing that. I did not participate in team sports because that was too stressful, because what if you let the team down? I did do gymnastics when I was really young, and then I did ballet and like jazz dance. So that was something that I could do physically, and it involved music and everything like that. But it was me. It was worry about yourself kind of thing instead of what if someone throws the ball to me and I don't catch it? Like I didn't have to worry about that.
What brought movement into your life day to day?
I grew up in an interesting time, which was kind of like diet culture, like 80s and 90s diet culture, which kind of was along the lines of we exercise to burn calories or whatever. So I saw both of my parents kind of doing that sort of a thing. So they were always active, but it wasn't necessarily because they wanted to be or because they loved it. I love moving to music. I love music. And so that's a big part of it. I love how it is sort of strength and flexibility, mobility together, which, what am I doing now? Like that's like body balance. So I had never really thought about it until right now, but finding ways that brought me joy, while moving. And to contrast that, I hated PE. I hated, I mentioned team sports, but remember when you'd have to run the mile? Like that was like my worst day of my life. Like I was always, slow. I'm still slow. I was always the slow one. I was always like, I just hated that. But it was, I think the thing that I didn't like about that sort of stuff is because it was performative. Like, what's your time on the mile? How many pull-ups can you do? How many sit-ups can you do? How far can you reach on the sit and reach? And it was just, there was no purpose to it. And when you can find something that brings you a little bit of happiness and joy, and even just something as simple as like, as I got a little bit older and I was in a fitness class in high school, it was like PE, but it was called fitness, and they would take us to the gym. And I literally would just be on the elliptical, but I had my music in my earbuds. So like I was happy. So yeah, I don't know, just finding what you enjoy. And I think that's going to be a theme of what we talk about today, but you have to do something you enjoy and not to meet a metric or in relation to what you're eating and stuff like that.
I think when people think about your name, they may associate it with Body Balance. What is it about this program that you think connects you to our world?
I think it is very internal. So I talked a lot about being with myself, being by myself, being happy in my own space. And it is that very much so. There's a lot of the class where you can't really, you're in a downward dog and you can't even see anybody else. You're in a forward fold and you're just on your own. You get to be with other people. So you get to be with yourself, but you also get to be social because you're with the group. It's called Body Balance because there is a balance of really, really challenging moments where your legs, your core, your balance, it is tough sometimes. And then there are these really beautiful moments where you get to just kind of surrender and in a stretch or in the relaxation, just surrender and let go and breathe and maybe even close your eyes. And it's all set to the best music. Like any other program, I'm sorry, this is the best music, Body Balance. When people come for the first time to a Body Balance class, if they've done, other Les Mills programs, that's a great gateway to come on in. And it's a similar structure with the tracks and everything. 100% of the time, the takeaway, the thing they say at the end is, oh my gosh, I just love that music. It attracts such a diverse group of clientele. Like I've had people who are in high school in my classes. I've had people who are in their 80s in my classes. I've had people who come up to me and say, I'm exercising for the very first time today in my life. They come to Body Balance. Athletes who want to lift more weight or run faster, they come to Body Balance. So it's just every sort of a person, ages, stages, body types, genders, experience with exercise and not. And I really love that because it sounds very cliche, but everybody belongs there. And there's an entry point for everybody to feel like this is for me, even if it's like an 80-year-old guy and a 16-year-old girl standing next to each other, they're getting what they need out of it. And I love that. My first Body Balance class was someone I did not know very well. It was an acquaintance from work. We weren't even really friends, but she belonged to this gym. And she invited me because I think it was like Les Mills launch. And if you invited friends, you got something, like you got a t-shirt or something. So she invited people just hoping someone would say yes. And I, meanwhile, was kind of searching for a yoga type class. And I was like, sure, I'll go. And then after I said yes, I was like, I don't even know this person. Like, it was so out of character for me to say to a stranger, yes, I'll meet you at this place at 6:00. Like, I can't believe I did that. I'm so glad I did that. I was looking for a yoga experience that wasn't too challenging, but wasn't too easy, that where music was a component, where it felt energizing and just a place where I felt like I belonged and like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I took that weird class with that girl that I never saw again, by the way. I never saw her again, ever. Like, not even at work. I don't know what happened to her. Where is she?
She's at home taking Lesmos Plus being like, wait a second.
But the result of that was I never stopped going. So I went out to the front desk and I was like, I want to sign up for the 7-day trial. And then I joined, and I never stopped going to Body Balance. It was Body Flow at the time. And then different classes. And that's how it all started.
Your mother, Katharine, was a very special person who passed away in 2021. Could you tell us a little bit about her and how she influenced you as a fitness educator?
She was the most positive person. And sometimes that would cause a little bit of conflict because I would be like droning on about my troubles, and she would be like, just look on the bright side, just be glad about whatever. But it was absolutely genuine. She really did look on the bright side. She really felt optimistic about things, even like she passed away from cancer. And even during that time, she was optimistic all through. It was just part of who she was. She always worked in finance, and she retired her career as the finance director of the school district in Lewiston, Idaho. So she was very close to education. She loved that I was a teacher. We worked for the same school district for a while. She would come visit my classroom and all of the things. And she was always a huge advocate for teachers and for kids. Her job was overseeing the budget, and she would really listen to, what do teachers need? What do principals need? What do schools need? What do kids need? What are the challenges? How can we fund that? Her legacy is really quite amazing, because probably the biggest thing she did in her professional career was that town desperately needed a new high school. The high school was decades old. It was like decrepit. It was falling apart. There was asbestos. It was not ADA compliant, all of those things that a lot of towns have that problem. She was actually like one of the people out there, like going door to door, like talking to folks, asking them to vote yes. She would present, this is the budget. This is what we're proposing. This is why we need it. And it was like little ripples at a time. Like maybe she would pitch this thing to like 3 people on Monday and 2 people on Tuesday. But she just kept doing it. There was a lot of steps that had to happen after we got yes from the taxpayers to bring this to actual fruition and to build a school and get kids and staff in the school. So in her lifetime, she got to see that go from absolutely zero to a new high school that's safe for everybody, ADA accessible, lots of really positive things around that. And actually see, she was kind of getting to retirement age, and she was like, I cannot retire until we get this high school built. It was something she took on, and Lewiston High School, the new one as it stands now, would not exist. And that is not an exaggeration, would not exist without her. Me being an educator, she was always very pro that, happy about that. When it transformed more kind of into the fitness space, she was really excited by that. She had her own transformation of finding movement that made her happy. And she was actually a Les Mills fan. Body Step was her favorite. She would do Body Step at 5:30 in the morning at her gym. I just know that she would be really tickled about this whole thing, about like being a trainer and being on masterclass and stuff like that, like, because even though she was not an instructor herself, she was very much aware of this world.
In what spaces do you still feel her presence today?
When you look out, and I think almost every instructor has this, you look out and people are kind of in their own world, but there's usually like that one person who's looking at you and smiling. And whatever you say, they just love it. And whatever you ask them to do, they just love it. And that's how she was. So sometimes I'll see that person in class and I'm like, that's how she was. And I think also because at this point she was in like her 50s and 60s, and it's not always easy to try new things at that stage of life. And that is a brave thing to do, especially out in front of other people.
Thanks for sharing all of that, Rebecca. It's really great to get to know her, as I didn't know her, but I do know her daughter, and that daughter is one of my really great friends. So if she was anything like you, then I know that she was an absolute wonderful person. I think it's funny that she would be tickled about this masterclass experience too, and it tickles me too sometimes because we both started out in the same class on the trainer assessor presenter team. We were with assessors. We worked in the behind the scenes to start. Now that folks have seen a lot of on-screen talent from you, seen you presented in recent masterclasses as of this filming, tell us a little bit more about what people didn't see on the screen. What was happening behind the scenes in this really cool experience?
It has been wonderful and overwhelming in a good way. It has been wild how many people have reached out, messaged me, commented on things. People who I used to know, from years ago, and then our paths have gone in different directions, message me or text me and say, was that you on the masterclass? And I'm like, yeah, that actually happened this morning, like just before this. You never know how people are going to receive things. So it's very possible that there are people out there saying bad things about me, but I'm oblivious and I don't know about it. So, I'm very pleased just kind of with our instructor community. Happy that people are so kind and so open and seeing things that maybe I didn't see in myself. Personally, it's been very positive.
That's really great to hear. And it's really vulnerable to do, right? We're putting our whole self out there. We're exercising on film for people to watch and analyze our knees, feet, the things we say. And so, yeah, sure, critics can come out and criticize things that aren't even related to the workout.
Leading up to actually going to New Zealand in the really months prior, I was sending videos of myself teaching, and it would differ. So sometimes I would send a video of myself teaching a real class with participants. Sometimes it would be just me at home doing a couple of the exercises, different things, but I would send those to, it was Diana and Kylie, and then get feedback. And then you kind of just keep going with that. Then you try again and you send it again and you get more feedback. And we had lots of talks, lots of conversations about self-confidence and believing in yourself. And that was really nice because it was not what I feared it could have been.
What do you believe it could have been?